Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the ASX and Sectors weekly chart analysis for the week ending 19th of June 2026. The first chart is the S&P ASX 200 index, the XJO. This is the parent index of the Australian Stock Exchange. The market pushed higher earlier in the week and then faded lower towards the end of the week. The volume was very high due to options and futures expiry on Friday, which was itself very high. Highs of the range through here, intermediate level there, and the lows of the range down here. You can see the market's pushed up to the highs of this range and then faded lower during the week in sort of buy the offer fashion. To be honest, this chart is looking a little messy compared to some of the other sector charts, and it's perhaps more clear to look at the mid-cap sector at this point in time. This is the ASX mid-cap sector. It's comprised of the bottom 50 stocks in the ASX 100 index. The breakdown line comes through here and the highs of the range through there. They line up quite nicely. You've got the lows of the overall range here. You can see the market has been consolidating sideways. It's pushed up this week in response to the strength that was found last week, and it's closed right at this important level. That's far more clear than the parent index at the moment. The market's effectively found some strength at the lows of the range. It's pushed up towards the highs of the range. It's been through a period of consolidation and absorption, attempting to absorb the supply and potentially build up some strength for a push higher. And now it's attempting to challenge the breakdown line in the background. There's likely to be supply to the left here, which will need to be absorbed if the price is going to continue higher. And the market made the first challenge to that level this week. The ASX Small Ordinary sector is very similar to the mid-caps to a large degree. This sector is comprised of the bottom 200 stocks in the ASX 300 index. There's the breakdown line, and you can see that lines up very nicely with the highs of the range there, lows of the range down here. Strength was built from here. Price pushed up to the highs of the range, or the breakdown line in the background. A period of consolidation has taken place and absorption, and the market's made the first attempt to challenge that level this week. There's likely to be supply to the left here, which will need to be absorbed if price is going to continue higher. This is the ASX financial sector, and it's pushed back to the lows of the range more recently on announcement from the RBA, the previous announcement. Since then, the market's traded within that bar's range. It's gone through a period of consolidation here and just pushed higher in response this week. The highs of this range here, through there, price pushed higher. Here's the overall highs of the range, and the market drew out supply when that level was challenged. In return, price came back and consolidated each time until the RBA announcement here, where the market pulled back to the overall lows of the range, and it's been in consolidation since within that bar's range. If you drag this line across here, I expect that'll correspond pretty well with where the market finished this week. It does appear this market's in preparation for a push higher, attempting to absorb supply and perhaps building strength for an attempt to push higher in the future. This is the ASX metals and mining subsector. It's effectively the miners, and the market's been trading sideways for some time now, with supply being drawn out when price pushes above the highs of the range, and that's immediately neutralised with an absorption type bar in response. Then you've got another one and another absorption type bar, another one this week, where the market's making an attempt to push higher, then fading lower, and then neutralising any weakness with a test for supply or absorption type bar in response. This market also looks like it's preparing to push higher, attempting to absorb all of the supply at this level and potentially push higher in response. The ASX gold sector, and you've got the breakdown line in the background going through there, which caught the market when it attempted to push higher. Lows of the range through here, the intermediate level here. The market's found some strength over the last week or so and pushed up this week and closed right at that important level. I expect the market will probably test for supply and response early next week. And if supply is low and the gold price continues to be more favourable, there'll be an attempt to push higher in response. The ASX energy sector broke down this week. Here's the breakdown line of the lows of the range. The market pushed clearly below that level this week. Here's the range below where there's expected to be some support. So I expect the market will probably come back to that level next week. An attempt to recover next week will probably be rejected at this breakdown line, which forms the lows of the range. If that was the case, price would then come back like that. It's unlikely, not impossible, but unlikely, the market will just recover like that and back above this level. It would take a serious event in the Middle East, most likely, for that to take place. Possible, unlikely at this point in time. The ASX healthcare sector, it's bid high the last 2 weeks, only modestly, but it is actually moved above the highs of that last down bar. This market can't be trusted at this point in time, and I would recommend you just watch this market for now. We'll see how it trades over time. There's been periods of consolidation and potential absorption or accumulation previously, and they've all failed. And we haven't seen a significant amount of buying support down here yet. There has been some, no doubt, but we've seen that before, and it can't be trusted. I would just be waiting or very nimble if you're going to trade it. This is the ASX industrial sector, and it's moved higher over the last couple of weeks. Here's the breakdown line in the background. You can see that strength was found back here. The market pushed up to this breakdown line. The highs of the range are there, exactly at the breakdown line. There was a period of consolidation in response and absorption, preparing the market for a push higher. The market did push higher last week, and this week the market's effectively in consolidation mode. There's supply being drawn out from the left here. The market's attempting to absorb that supply. And by the look of this week's trading, it's doing a pretty good job. This is the ASX consumer staples. And you've got the market's highs of the range through there. And the market pushed up to the highs of the range last week. And this week it's trading in consolidation mode, right up high in the range. That's generally a sign of strength for the market. The higher within the range of the previous strong up bar, the market can consolidate, the stronger the market sentiment is, and that would generally reflect in prices. This market looks poised to push higher, which I'm a little surprised at. I would have thought the market would have stalled out at this highs of the range level. There may be a secondary test for supply in response, at least early next week. And if supply is found to be low, this market may attempt to move higher in response. This is the ASX consumer discretionary. It pushed high last week, and it spent this week in consolidation mode as well. Here was the breakout level from this trading range where the market was building up some strength. The market broke out last week, and this week the market's traded in consolidation mode right up high in the range, suggesting there's underlying strength in this market now. You've got the breakdown line above coming through here, and there's likely to be some supply drawn out of that congestion if and when the market pushes up to that level. There was some secondary congestion expected through there, and the market's just starting to encounter that at the moment. So the market's effectively broken out from its trading range last week, and this week it spent nearly all of the week trading in consolidation mode, attempting to absorb the inevitable supply that's drawn out when markets break out from a range like that. And there may be some secondary testing in response next week, at least early next week. This is the ASX properties sector, and it pushed up and attempted to break out last week. The breakdown line above goes through there. The market did find some strength back here. It pushed up. It's been through a period of consolidation through there like that. Last week it pushed higher and made the initial challenge to the breakdown line. And this week the market's pushed higher and then faded lower, which is what you'll often see in an absorption type pattern. You've got a secondary breakdown line above that. There's likely to be some supply drawn out from the left here, and even stronger supply drawn out from the left up there. Next level goes through there like that. So this market's attempting to absorb the supply being drawn out in the trading range above, which is in here. And it's looking reasonably successful at this point in time. I expect there'll be a test for supply below the previous bar's close early next week, and then the market will respond depending on how much supply is drawn out. Just back to the parent index. Well, first we'll go to the mid-cap sector because that's a far more clear chart to look at. Here's the breakdown line above and the highs of the recent trading range. Period of consolidation, strength developing. That's a very clear chart and you can see exactly what's going on. You switch from there to the parent index. It's a much more messy chart. There's opposing forces in this market, in the different sectors, which are causing uncertainty and gyration and exaggerated bars, exaggerated trading. That's making this market chart appear very messy. You've got the lows of the range down here, highs of the range here. There's an intermediate level which came through there. The market has been consolidating sideways through there for some period of time now. There was a minor challenge to that level last week. Markets pushed up and faded lower this week in absorption mode to a large degree, I expect. There'll be a little bit of supply being drawn out from the left here. The market's attempting to prepare itself for a push higher. Whether that'll be successful or not, we'll have to see. But at this point in time, the market's pushed higher above this little intermediate level through here, and it's attempting to absorb supply, most likely in preparation for a push higher if the opportunity arises. Okay, thanks for your time. Back again next week. See ya.